Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Rudy Page, and I'm really pleased that we have Dr. Nola Ishmael with us for part 2 of Inspiring Leaders for Change. Nola, how are you?
I'm good. I'm well, despite the
Excellent.
cold.
Yeah, it is indeed, isn't it?
Yes,
But it's great to see you again, and we've had
thank you.
great responses from colleagues in terms of part 1. So
That's good to hear.
we're certainly looking forward to part 2 for the next 45 minutes or hour or so.
Right.
So our theme today, Nola, is what is your legacy and who did you help? And that's because at the end of part 1, we spoke about servant leadership and the importance of that and what that meant to individuals, what it meant organizationally, and what it meant to the communities from where those individuals had come from, and maybe some of the challenges. So
Right.
keeping things simple at the start, when you ask that question, what is your legacy? What did you mean by that?
I meant, what did I achieve and how did I impact others to perform at their best levels? What did I do for others that advanced their capabilities and their skills? And in thinking about this question, one of the things that I believe is part of my legacy is the mentoring program that I introduced as part of developing and helping people. And for me, this was quite important. Advancement as a BME person in the health service didn't come easy.
Mhm.
It didn't come as a rite of passage. It didn't come because you wanted it so much and you desired it and people complied with that. It took a lot of energy, learning, and development and determination. So my legacy was to enable and inspire other people working in the health service to do more than I was doing, to achieve higher, and to be the best they could be. So the mentoring program that I introduced at the time when I was at the department, although I had been mentoring people before, it was almost to prepare for a new me,
Yeah.
to bring people forward, to inspire and develop the skills and the confidence that comes with knowing how,
Mhm.
knowing why, and knowing that you
Mhm.
can do it. And my legacy, I hope, is the accomplishments that has followed and the footsteps that came. My motto at the time was to pull as I push.
Yeah.
As I climbed, I was pulling people along. And it was never a greater feeling than when somebody said to me, I got the job, or I got promoted, or I got published. It was their achievement and how they were doing. And if I could play a part, happy to, always happy to. So the mentorship program, the coaching,
Mhm.
the shadowing,
Mhm.
and the advice sharing
Yeah. Yeah.
that I gave to others. And
And,
they know who they are.
uh, uh,
There
uh,
was a time, there was a time when people said to each other, have you been Nola'd?
exactly. Yes. Yes,
So
indeed. Yeah.
I Nola'd a few people in
No,
my time.
absolutely. And you make an important point. And that's one thing that we've understood as well, especially when you are working in systems where knowledge and information is an integral part of your progression, and that
Mhm.
is to come from a mentored group.
Yes,
And
indeed.
and so that you do understand within certain environments what the norms are, what the conventions are. These are really important.
Yes, I fervently believe that knowledge must have oxygen. You can't keep it hidden. You can't, you know it, so nobody else must know it. You have to share. You have to multiply those talents and share and allow people to learn and gain. And yes, even if they quote something or do something that you may have developed, that's all right. It's like having a bucket of water or a source of water. One bucket doesn't empty the well.
Yeah, exactly. And
So,
of course, knowledge sharing, the more you share, you actually gain more. If people
absolutely.
really understood that and really thought about that, the more they shared, the more they would
Yes.
actually gain. You know?
And it's a true fact.
Yeah.
The exchange of ideas, the sharing and listening to how people overcame their difficulties and what they did to achieve it is learning, if you like, the steps to the next adventure. Would you do it that way or would you do it differently? And would you borrow the ideas? I always believe in borrowing good ideas.
Absolutely.
And acknowledging you
We always
borrowed them.
called it, we always called it research.
Indeed, indeed. But sharing and
Yeah,
caring,
yeah,
sharing and caring as you go,
yeah,
making it good that others can say, I got that, and now I'm going to share it with you. That
yeah.
was the basis of my shadowing program. People I wanted from the NHS to come to the department to see how the
Mhm,
systems and the policies were developed
mm,
and how you would apply the new policies to the everyday work. What would happen when a policy came out? For
mm,
example, when the first strategy for nursing was published in 1999, one particular nurse who was just been promoted to manager said to me, but what do I do now?
mm.
Which is not a silly question. I've got the job, what do I do now? My
Yeah,
answer, take that document, look at each chapter, see what it's saying, and ask yourself, how can I apply these to my everyday job? And what will the difference make to my patients and my staff? Make that a tool that
a-
you will use.
absolutely. And we say in terms of policy implementation, implementation is key to attainment.
Absolutely. I like
That's
that. I
really
like it.
important.
Yes.
And it's 90% how you get it done, only 10% about what you've got to do.
It is that you do it.
Yeah,
Apply the wisdom,
yeah,
apply the knowledge. Yes.
absolutely. And in fact, and we probably touch on it at maybe program 3, where we
Hmm.
look at that role as an advisor and giving advice, as
Yeah.
you mentioned about, you know, the difference in terms of the policy development area, and then the, you know, through the department and then down into the NHS, where
Yeah.
the translation of practice through workable plans and program activities.
Yes.
We'll touch on that.
Okay.
But going back to the second part of the question, in terms of who did you help, right?
Mm.
I
Yeah.
want to broaden that then in terms of some of the challenges around the system as well, in terms of who did you help, is when we think of recognizing and accounting for inequality and disadvantage difference. So
Wow.
the challenges within the system, being able to work out the difference between inequality, the structural inequalities, and the disadvantage difference. What are your thoughts around that from a leadership perspective?
I want to start with the communities as was.
Yeah.
My generation, the immigrant who came to learn a skill of nursing, a generation that came mostly just out of their teens or teenagers and fulfilled this heavy remit of learning a serious skill, a life protecting and support skill of nursing in itself. I mean, there are other skills that came to doctors and different skills in the NHS, but our generation came with just a basic education from high school, from a different country, a different system, but we came and we got on with it. We learned what we had to learn, we did what we had to do, and we developed the endurance and the tenacity that made us the tough people we were. Now, we then gave birth to children who are now looking to see what changed for them. I'm not sure much has, but I'm hoping. And those of us who have grandchildren, we pray that they don't have to face the same difficulties that we did. And if they do, what has changed? How has society inculcate what we have brought, the very cultures that we contributed and allowed to enhance our care? What did that pay off? What's the payoff here? I'm hopeful that more learning will happen with this with a generation that wants to know more about us and not just about our food.
What I would say to that, and I'm in agreement, is every generation has a mission to perform.
Yes.
And of course, we have to deal with the world in terms of, you know, how we meet it almost. So there's conventions that are handed down generational conventions, aren't they?
Thankfully, that's the bedrock of our cultures.
Yeah.
And we don't want to lose that. On the other hand, we want people to respect that and understand we are no more anglicized as we are from whichever island or country. So there's a combination of cultures, customs, and practices, conventions, and habits that will hopefully enrich our contribution to the NHS, because let's face it, we contributed enormously, continues to contribute, and look forward to working in a receptive workplace that understands our situation. Individuals may do something, but the organization needs to protect us too.
Yes, and having said that, if we think in terms of another area that you've been really clear around, about everyone having a clear definition and understanding of EDI, as we say now, equality, diversity, and inclusion, and working proactively rather than reactively, because the policies are there, the procedures are there, but we still have challenges around
a clear understanding that we are not homogenous.
Yeah.
We're not one big group or lump who will think the same, behave the same, or sound the same. We are individual entities working collaboratively and consistently. Nobody says, well, we didn't do it like this at home, so I can't do it now. We learn the new structures and we apply the knowledge, but we need an understanding that as ethnic people, respect that,
Yeah.
understand that. We bring more than we take.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you look at that word, we think about the word, the monitoring of implementation, the monitoring of outcomes around EDI.
Mm.
What, in your experience, have really been the best measures of progression, and what areas have you really seen these policies have been effective in the advancement of the challenges around, leadership and management?
I dare say I would have to look at we should look at the data rather than what people say. What did happen? How often does it happen? So data collection and evidence bases are critical. Where do you go from here? The NHS has its annual survey. And I think that's when it gets told where it's really at, what is really happening. The evidence that comes out of the NHS annual survey really tells the story of how people are treated, how they feel, why they feel not valued or valued, and progress. Has there been a marked progress since, let's say, 2000?
Yes.
That's a good measure.
Yeah. No,
what has changed since the year 2000?
Absolutely. And of course, we have the RES, the Workforce Race Equality Standard, which at various times we did think of it as being accountability by data.
Yes.
But I guess we're still thinking about some of the best ways of translating that data into actions, into workable plans for, improving the quality of care, advancement, experience, those types of things.
A better question is, what would it take to transfer or translate the statements into action? What is necessary? Is it training? Is it resources? I would suggest it's a mentality change.
So it's a mindset.
A mindset change, so that the value that is put on people isn't ad hoc, isn't polka dot. Today is one thing, next week it's another. So what would it take to keep a constancy of appreciation and value going in NHS staff? And how would it improve the NHS survey?
So there's a balance then to be struck between the well-being of staff and teams and system performance. So
absolutely, yes. Who is looking after the carers?
Yeah.
Who cares for the carers?
Yeah.
That's a question that's been floating around for years.
Absolutely.
I would dare to mention it maybe a charity is, rather than the NHS. Although, to be fair, some elements of the NHS will tell you that they do.
Yeah.
I say again, where's the evidence? What is the feedback loop? That's a very important element. What would a feedback loop say?
Yeah, absolutely. There's something I would like to spring on you, actually, in terms of some of the work that we did some 20 years ago, and there's a grand statement from you, in fact.
Did it?
And this is at the Royal College of Nursing for RTN Connect, where you gave the keynote address as that program was handed back to the nurses under a communities of practice approach.
Okay.
Maybe actually before we go to that, could Can you give your perspective around communities of practice? Because there was a time that we thought that would be one of the best ways for staff to develop themselves both inside the system and in communities. And given where we've just come from now, through the pandemic, where we had to really look back and start to remind everybody the workforce is a community and the community is the workforce. And in fact, we were just relearning something from all those years ago.
Yeah, I would think there's something that has become fragmented.
Mm.
The communities of practice form networks
Mhm.
that supported and enabled and highlighted elements of work. There was networks where you could, if you like, bare your soul, say what was happening and what have you.
Mm.
But a caution has kicked in now, because will it benefit me or will it benefit someone else? Will
Yeah.
it make me look bad
Mm.
or weak? So communities of practice almost needs to be re-energized
Mm.
and re-presented as a beneficial element that will benefit both staff and patients and clients. So a reframing, a resetting.
Yeah, you make a really good point, because some of that also can be transferred into learning sets.
Yes, indeed, yes.
And one of the challenges that we still have is to accept that the patient voice now, involvement and representation in their care within the system, is an integral part of improving system performances.
Oh, but didn't it take a long time to respect that voice?
Yeah.
We were the experts. We weren't listening to what the patient's journey was. We were telling them what it was, and it was happening to the patient. So the power of the patient journey has changed the perspective of how we deal with, and furthermore, the complaint systems. The public has got sharper, and we needed to recognize their power in their care.
Yeah,
All power to them.
and of course, Dr. Google has given them a lot of help.
Dr. Google. Yes, indeed. You get your learning from wherever you can. Indeed.
Yeah,
Yes.
so going back to that closing statement, and I'll read it very quickly. And what you said to that group of practitioners, that if I remember, there was about 50 or 60 of them at the time, you said, "I would strongly exhort you to use the skills, lessons and knowledge you have gained in the last 2 years since RCN Connect started, and make your professional future one where you know how to make an impact. Use your networks, your confidence, your know-how, and look to the future full in the face. Look the future full in the face. It is to each of you to reach beyond your grasp and dare to reshape your distant horizons." And you said that on the 13th of February 2003.
I see that. I met a girl at the time. I seem to recall, really, that I was daring to challenge the audience to do more than they were doing. I was of the opinion, you make no change, you don't improve in your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Even if you move to your panic zone,
Yeah.
you have to get to another zone. The comfort zone is a dangerous zone. Move out, challenge it, dare to be, reach beyond your grasp, reach to the horizons and beyond. And in today's world, I would echo that sentiment again. Do more. Think of the comfort zone as a sleeping zone. You're not learning anything.
That's a good line. Comfort zone is a sleeping zone.
Yes, you're not learning anything.
And that's a message for all of us. That really is.
Yes.
Excellent, excellent, excellent.
Thank you.
So as we come to the end of this dialogue, I just would like to just get an overview for the next dialogue, really, before we come to the end. And that is very much about being an advisor, you know, being in an advisory group, being in a forum, and how that is handled. So if we look at the way advisors are normally appointed, we say all voices must be heard, no ideas overlooked, diversity of opinion accepted, collective responsibility. And in a sense, it goes back to the staff networks, the forums that should have transcended within the system and then back out into the community with knowledge and information going backwards and forwards, each side enhancing each other. So as we've come through the pandemic now, there is a greater move now, and that generated from within the communities itself to be able to start to give advice again about the system, the culture, the people. So I'll be interested in your thoughts on that, and we'll go into more detail in the next program.
Sure, yes.
People have asked me about that, to talk to you around that area.
Advising is a carefully contoured zone. Nobody has to take it. They don't have to like it, especially if it's not pleasing, but it's a necessary. All great leaders and those who have the charge of managing their lives take advice. They seek it and they act on it. So advice giving is a privilege worth doing.
That's a great ending.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Excellent. So we look forward to the next one in a couple of weeks.
All right. Yes.
We'll be going to a bit more detail around that, because as I said, there has been an interest from people for us to focus on being an advisor.
Okay.
And we'll be talking about influence as well.
Happy to.
And that kind of that non-executive role, in other words. So again,
yes,
having been through the executive route and, rolled up the sleeves, the now time comes to be that critical friend.
Yes.
Influence.
Yes.
And that broad look at the system, long distance, but also being able to look at things very closely, because having been there and experienced it, and how do you then advise others within the system, but also what goes on in community as well, because again, having come through the pandemic, we now know how important our charities and voluntary sector organizations are. And historically, a lot of that talent within the NHS system didn't come out into public health, didn't come out into the charities, which that is really important now.
Okay.
That talent comes out of the system.
I can tell you as a starter, I will be talking and looking at what you do when you look at the blind spots that people don't see.
Okay. Excellent.
Okay.
Right, and on that profound note, I shall see you next time.
Okay, Rudy. Good to see you.
Take care.
Have a good one. All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.